Your company won't warn you when they're preparing to cut you off. She's not going to say, start saving money. It's not going to say, stop spending as if your salary were guaranteed. It's not going to say, update your resume, because you might soon be competing for a job with hundreds of desperate people. Most of the time, you only find out when you've already become a number in a spreadsheet. An odd invitation on the calendar, a short meeting, a cold phrase about restructuring, and ready. The income that paid for rent, groceries, car, credit card, health insurance, and your family's life simply stops coming in. And the worst part is that losing your job today doesn't just mean spending a few weeks looking for another one. It means entering a market where qualified people send out resumes for months and are ignored, where recruiters disappear, where vacancies seem to exist but are never filled, where interviews have multiple stages, tests, promises, final conversations, and then silence, where many people return earning less, outside the field, accepting anything just to avoid sinking completely. Therefore, this video is not about fear, it's about waking up before the impact. Because companies rarely give warnings before laying someone off, but they almost always leave signs. In the way they freeze job openings, in the way they cut the budget, in the way they talk about efficiency, in the way they charge smaller teams more, and especially in the way you start to feel that something has changed, but try to convince yourself that everything is normal. If you want to understand the risks of the economy before they destroy your wallet, subscribe to the channel. Because the question isn't whether you trust your company. The question is, if your income were to disappear tomorrow, how long could you realistically hold out? But he also doesn't see himself as someone at risk. Every month the salary comes in, the bills are paid, and he moves on. Until small things start to change, someone leaves the team, and no one replaces them. A promised job opportunity disappears. The manager who used to talk about growth is now talking about focus. Meetings are getting shorter, the leaders are becoming more vague. Mark understands, but tries to calm down. This happens in every company. My team is important, I deliver well. If they were going to cut someone, it wouldn't be me. And that's how many people get trapped. Not for lack of intelligence, but out of hope. Because updating your resume seems like overkill. Cutting costs seems like admitting defeat. Talking to contacts feels like desperation. Looking at the debt is shameful. Calculating how long I could survive without a salary is frightening, so Mark waits. The company is expected to improve. Wait for the market to heat up. Wait for the bad feeling to pass. But financial risk doesn't wait for a person to feel ready. And while he tries to appear calm, the company may already be deciding who fits into the next budget and who has become too costly to maintain. It starts when the company freezes hiring, but says it's temporary. It starts when someone leaves and that person's work is divided among 3 employees who were already tired. It begins when projects that seemed important are put on hold without a clear explanation. It starts when the budget gets smaller, but the demands get higher. It starts when managers stop talking about the next quarter and begin responding to everything with vague phrases. Let's wait and see, we are reassessing. Now we need to be more focused. It's a phase of discipline. These sentences seem normal, but together, they tell a story. The company may be trying to figure out how much it can cut without disrupting operations. And when that happens, the worker often misinterprets it. He thinks that more work means he's indispensable, but sometimes it just means the company is testing whether it can survive with fewer people. He thinks the leadership silence is simply a lack of communication. But sometimes it's because decisions are already being discussed in rooms he doesn't go to. He thinks the frozen vacancy will return. But sometimes that vacancy is the first sign that the company no longer wants to grow, it just wants to reduce costs. It's like water heating up before it boils. At first, you only feel discomfort, then you start to get used to it. And when they realize the situation has become dangerous, perhaps the decision has already been made. Therefore, the question is not whether a single sign proves you will be fired. The question is, how many signs are you ignoring at the same time? This happens because the brain tries to protect the feeling of normalcy. If you had a salary yesterday, your brain wants to believe that you will have one tomorrow as well. If the company survived the last problem, you want to believe it will survive this one too. That's the normality bias. A person looks at a growing hazard and thinks, it can't be that serious. Then comes another mistake, believing that seniority is a shield. I've been here for years. I know everything. They need me. But when a company goes into cost-cutting mode, loyalty can become just an expensive line item on the payroll. This hurts because the worker doesn't see themselves as a cost. He sees himself as an effort, as a sacrifice. Like nights where I deliver more than I should. For example, messages answered outside of business hours, like years of trying to be useful. But in a spreadsheet, all of that can disappear behind a cold question: how much does this person cost? And there's still the shame. The embarrassment of calling a contact before you actually need to. The shame of admitting that the debt is high. The shame of looking at your own resume and realizing it's been sitting there for years. The shame of accepting that you might be vulnerable. That's why many people freeze up. Don't prepare because preparing seems like accepting that things might go wrong. But being laid off isn't just a financial shock, it's an identity shock. When a job disappears, a person doesn't just lose income. Loss of routine, lose the status, loss of confidence. You miss the simple answer to the question, what do you do? And that's precisely why waiting for the problem to arise before acting is so dangerous. Because after being laid off, you won't just be looking for work. You'll be trying to rebuild your life while the bills keep piling up. You can see the stock market rising, executives smiling, and companies talking about innovation. But the real life of those who work may tell a different story. A friend of mine has been sending out resumes for months and no one has responded. A colleague went to the final interview and was then met with silence. Someone with experience accepted lower pay just to have an income again. And you start to realize that there's a huge difference between the economics of financial reports and the economics of your home. When interest rates are high, money becomes expensive. And when money gets expensive, companies become less patient. Hiring more people becomes riskier. Starting new projects becomes more difficult. Expanding the team stops looking like an opportunity and starts looking like a cost. So the company is holding the position. Hiring freeze, postpone investment, cut the project, review the budget, and he calls all of this prudence. At the same time, artificial intelligence enters the conversation. Not because all jobs are going to disappear tomorrow, but because AI gives companies an excuse to ask, can you do the same work with fewer people? Does a tool represent part of what a team used to do? Do we need to hire more people or just put more pressure on those who stayed? And when there are many candidates competing for few positions, the power shifts. The worker is asking for less, accept more, demand less. He's afraid to negotiate. She's afraid to go out. He's afraid to discover that things are worse out there. This is the invisible risk. Even before being fired, fear begins to erode your power. One person resigns, another is transferred. Another disappears from the team, but the work continues. Only now it falls on the shoulders of those who remain. The company calls this adaptation. Often, it's a test to see if it can operate with fewer people. The second sign is when your manager avoids talking about the future. Before, there were plans, goals, growth, new job openings, new projects. Now, every answer seems short. We'll see. We don't know yet. It depends on the budget. When nobody wants to talk about the next quarter, maybe it's because the next quarter doesn't exist for everyone yet. The third sign is when the workload increases, but the team does not. You work harder, respond more, solve more problems, deliver more. But no one comes to help. This might seem like trust. But it could also be the company squeezing the team before deciding who is still essential. The fourth sign is when leadership starts repeating words like efficiency, discipline, focus, and productivity. These words don't automatically mean cuts. But when they become the focus of all communication, they show that the company is looking less at growth and more at cost. The fifth sign is when future plans are put on hold, training programs disappear. Expansions cool down, new ideas get shelved. When a company stops building the future, it may be trying to survive the present. The sixth sign is when it becomes difficult to explain why your position protects money, generates money, or saves money. In good times, companies tolerate less visible roles. In bad times, every position needs to justify its existence. The seventh sign is the most personal. You arrive on Friday relieved, not because the week was good, but because you survived yet another one. If you've seen any of these signs at your job, comment signs below. And if this video is helping you see the economy more clearly, give it a like, because maybe another worker needs to see this before being caught off guard. But it can reduce the extent of the damage if that happens. Over the next 30 days, the first thing to do is update your resume before you need it. Don't wait until you're emotionally devastated, angry, ashamed, and behind on bills to try and remember everything you've already delivered. Record the results, projects, savings that you generated, problems that he solved, numbers that show value. Because in today's market, saying I'm good isn't enough. You need to show why your work matters. The second thing is to talk to contacts before asking for help. Don't just show up when you're desperate. Message former colleagues, rekindle conversations. Ask how the industry is doing. Observe who is genuinely hiring and who is only posting job openings to appear to be growing. The third thing is to look at your money without makeup. How much do you spend per month? How long could you go without a salary? What subscriptions, installments, and automatic expenses are silently draining your life? It's not about cutting everything off and living in panic. It's about knowing what can be cut back quickly if the rent stops. The fourth thing is to review your debts. Credit cards cannot be used as unemployment benefits. Because when you use expensive debt to survive, the pain of being laid off continues even after you find another job. The fifth thing is to understand which parts of your job are most exposed to automation. Not to despair, but to find out where you need to strengthen yourself. Their goal is not simply to change jobs, it's about building a bridge to another sector, another role, or another source of income before you're forced to do so at the worst moment of your life. Preparation doesn't prevent all cuts, but it reduces fragility. And in an unstable economy, reducing fragility is already a form of defense. When a company decides to cut costs, it doesn't feel the impact of its bill coming due. You can feel it. Therefore, stability today is not just about having a job. Stability means having options. It's about having a resume ready for the emergency. It's about having contacts before despair sets in. It's about having less debt before your income stops. It's about having some cash on hand before relying on a credit card becomes a matter of survival. It's about having clarity before fear makes decisions for you. You don't control all the cuts, but you can stop living as if your salary were impossible to lose. Comment below which sign worries you most today. Leave a like if this video helped you think differently about financial security. And before you leave, watch the video that's playing on the screen now, because it shows another economic warning that many people are still ignoring.